We're going to start with a story. Take you back to 2022. I was hired as a sales trainer at my current role. And for the life of me, I can't tell you why my boss hired me at the time. I had zero sales knowledge, no sales experience. I had applied for a sales role once, went through the interview process, and wasn't even good enough to get that job. So what made me qualified for that role, I mean, sales trainer, the sales was missing entirely, was I was really good in a classroom. Didn't know why, I just was. So I start training salespeople. Now, when you get up in front of people to train them on something that you have zero knowledge on, and they have some knowledge on, you do a few things. The first is you panic. And really, the imposter syndrome really takes over. The second thing you do is you prepare for every training. Tirelessly. I don't speak English, I'm not American. Tirelessly prepare. And the third one is you don't sleep. You don't sleep the night before because you're constantly worried that that's the day they're going to find out that you're a fraud. So past 8 months, imagine not sleeping for 8 months, preparing me for having a child in the future, and I didn't even have a child. 8 months, I'm reading books, I'm trying to learn what it means to be a salesperson. And I come across one book that made a big impact on me. It's called Every Job is a Sales Job. And what it did for me that other books didn't is it tied roles and responsibilities I'd done in the past and how that was actually linked to sales. And I realized all of a sudden, I said, oh wow, I'm a really good salesperson. The reason I'm good in the classroom is because people listen to me. There's a reason that people show up to the trainings themselves are because I sell them well. Now, finally I could sleep, obviously, after 8 months because I started to have that confidence. So what I want to talk to you today about, we're going to flip the script. Engagement taught me to be a salesperson, and we're going to use sales to help you get better engagement. So flipping the script on this one. Mayday. Oh no, here we go. Okay, so we have what is called the engagement formula. It's not official. If you Google engagement formula, you might see some crazy things. I just put that on the screen. You'll see I'm not great with slides. We have the engagement formula. And before I jump into this, you need to know 3 things about sales that also translate to engagement. The first one is you need to know your audience. We have someone who's going to talk about that later, so I'm not going to talk about it today. But it is very important that you know who your audience is. The second one is you need there to be an emotional connection with the product. The product in your case is the initiative you're launching, whether it's a training itself or it's an online learning module. Emotional attachment, very important. We'll talk about that in a second. And the second one it needs, or the third, is it needs to make sense logically, obviously. It's facts. It needs to make sense to them. So in this engagement formula, we're going to do exactly that. If you know your audience, the first thing that we're going to start with is by building the emotional connection. And how to do it with a broader audience, without having a conversation. How do you connect something with them? You build a compelling story, just like I did with you now. Story is very important because the emotional aspect of it. And if you look into the research of sales, emotions play a huge role. A lot of people say that it's the driver behind action. The emotional part of the brain, when you have a connection to it. Think of a product. Think of your initiative. Stories help build that. And I know stories are like the big buzzword right now. You can find them all over the place. Lots of YouTube videos, a master class on how to build story and what it does to the brain. It's fantastic stuff. Use it. One of the things I like to use it for, one of the stories I like to tell is a story of fear of overcoming a skill. Because a lot of people have fear of the time investment it's going to take, or can I actually learn? Am I going to invest this much time and walk away with no skill at all? So I like telling a story like that. The same story I told you today, I've repackaged and used in several different ways to show I learned how to be a salesperson very easily through one book. So this is helping us build that emotional driver behind the purchase. When you don't have this to help with the emotion, you'll find when you sell something or you try to get people to come to a new initiative, you get into a back and forth debate and you're trying to use logic. But logic on its own doesn't sell because you just go back and forth and back and forth. So you need this. It really helps push back that barrier of logic. So once we built this, we're going to spend our next 2 in building logic. The first one is with him, or what is in it for me. I'm sure you've all heard of this before. I'm sure you've used it. But specifically, now. So we built that emotional connection. Now we're giving them the reason of what they're going to get out of it right now in your current role. Now this will work for a lot of people, and then you'll have a lot of people who say, oh, I'm good in my role, I don't need this. And we all know that some people think they're good in their role, and they might not be so good in their role. So we'll actually miss out on that half. But if we then take this last one, and I think this last one is really like the final push, the final ingredient to the engagement formula here, is what's in it for me in the future. Am I just making this short-term investment? Maybe I'm leaving in 6 months. I don't even care. I don't want to do this because I'm not investing it now, I'm investing in my future. So really adding this in is solidifying it. You have the emotional connection to go through, well, I am going to get this out, and it's going to be better for me in the long run. Maybe it is worth my time and effort. So if you add up all 3 of these ingredients, you get to engagement. And what's fun about this is it's not just engagement for your target audience. You can repackage and repurpose this formula in all kinds of aspects in the job. So, for example, from leadership. Leadership obviously is to sign off on the investment the team's going to make, how much time it's going to take to make the content or the program that you're looking to launch. What's the time investment from the team? Packaging the same thing. You are selling the same formula. For managers, managers are obviously big for the adoption part. You have to get manager buy-in. If you don't get the manager buy-in, the likelihood that it trickles down to the team is very slim. And obviously for the target audience, not only before to show up or to engage in it, but also during and after if you want them to have takeaways. So really, the last things I want you to remember, just to repeat on those, first is invest in your storytelling skills, and that includes how you tell stories, also how you build and draft stories, knowing your audience that are going to convince them. And secondly, know your audience so you can really build the what's in it for them now and in the future. That's all I have.